virtual meeting yesterday, and the author James Clear, very famous author of the New York Times best-selling book Atomic Habits.
Yeah.
He was talking about how when you have really good habits, time is on your side, because it's those little things over time that really add up.
Yeah.
But when you have bad habits, time is your enemy, because then you're compounding in the wrong direction. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really excited to kick off our official third episode of I Squared Incremental Impact, the Subtleties of Success. Today, I'm actually really looking forward to this conversation today. Good buddy of mine, Eric Gomez, EG. EG and I go back 14 years, and just really looking forward to picking his brain today and having him join us. So, EG, welcome to the session.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
So, quick background about Eric and his firm. So, he actually founded his firm, EG Wealth Management. I think it was officially launched. Was it last year?
Yeah, July 14th last year.
July 14th last year. And he's got a team of 4 right now. They run a national practice in Orange County. One of the things that I really like about, how he's running his practice is I feel like he's got a very clear and unique mission and value proposition. And the mission statement of his firm is that he empowers, or he and his team are empowering others through perspective. So I thought we'd start there, EG. If you want to maybe share with the group, what does that mean to you, and how do you guys actually help clients do that?
Yeah, so I think the word perspective, I think, is very interesting. It's just how one person looks and views anything. And when we talk about the world of finance and people's money, we all are a culmination of our experiences, the things that we've seen or heard in life, our upbringing, et cetera. And so we come to any situation with our own perspective. And so it's really helping people see perhaps a new perspective. One that's big right now is people buying and selling real estate. I was on a call with a client right before this, and he's buying a big home. And he says, Eric, I don't know if I need to put 35% down or 30% down. And it was a delta of $167,000 for that 5%. And so he's like, I want to put as much down to lower my payment. So I said, what is the difference of the payment? 30 to 35%. It was $150. And I joked with him and said, I went to public school, but I think I could do that math. $1,800 a year into $167,000. You should not put down the other 5%. So that was, I think, an example of perspective. So there's the examples like that I think radiate throughout our practice and our client interactions to help people see a new way, basically, to accomplish things that they maybe were going about it a certain way before they met us.
All right. So, Eric, I want to dive into a little bit more around who you feel like you and your team serve best, right? I think we all get into this career initially and we're working really hard to just get our practices to a point where, we can breathe, right? And we're actually like in a place where we're able to pay our bills, pay our staff and whatnot. And then we get to a point, down the career where we start to think about, okay, here are the markets that we feel we serve really well. So can you share with us, Eric, a little bit about the markets that you and your team just get energized when you're working in? Like, share with us a little bit more about your markets today.
Yeah. As we were talking about a second ago about perspective, I am no different than everybody else, that I come with my own life experiences and set of circumstances. And so I get perspective from the things that I read and watch like this and things I tune into. I'm very selective, I guess you'd say, about the things that I want to feed my mind. So I think that's an important part of this. And so to lead into your question, this idea really came from a number of books, and that's really what we're going to talk about today. That's really shaped who we are today, is just some other learnings we've had. And so I read this book called The One-Page Marketing Plan. It's a yellow paperback book. And it hit me in the early part of that book that most people are a mile wide and an inch deep versus, an inch wide and a mile deep. And it struck me that well, I thought I was serving people well, and I was, is the way I explained to my clients is it turned into herding cats, because I'm talking to supervisor of a construction company, and then I'm talking to a partner of a law firm, and then I'm talking to a teacher. And while we can switched very quickly because I think our core principles of what we do are the same. We started to really broaden our expertise, and if I'm going to be honest, we weren't a super expert in any of those areas, right? And so, and this was right before COVID, by the way. And so I thought about who do we want to serve? So there's a number of questions they help you go through. The first one we came up was the retirement red zone. And earlier on in my career, I didn't have a lot of success working with older people. I don't know if was my communication style. I don't know if it was a maturation issue. It doesn't really matter. But I sort of hit the stride 2 or 3 years ago where we were really starting to go deep with some of our planning on these folks that were getting prepared for retirement. And what was special about them is that they felt that they were all taken care of, but that they didn't really have a plan or an execution strategy of once they got to a specific age or junction to retire, what the world looked like beyond that. And so our planning really spoke to that. But as I read in the book, it does really encourage one market. And so if you were watching this, that may be a clothing company or a food outlet, right? They should figure out where they serve. But I just felt with the business that I'm in, it was good to quasi diversify, to have another market. And I'm glad I did that with COVID, because if you happen to be in, I talked to one person that they specialize in airline pilots. Well, if that was my market during COVID, I would have basically not had a business overnight. So I thought about that. I thought about how we can sort of bulletproof ourselves from who we served. And then the second group was what we refer to as the new majority executive. And really, that's a moniker we use for public facing purposes, sort of like this. But what that means to us is Hispanic men and women predominantly in corporate leadership or executive roles. And so you talked about energy. These folks absolutely give us energy, and they give us energy because we know that we can serve them well. And so it's like the chicken or the egg, right? Do we serve people well and then they love what we do and that gives us energy, or do we know that we bring value? And when we have that sort of confidence, it then reinforces our belief system because of their response.
Right.
And so that's how we did it, is that here's who we serve, tell a story. So there's another book I read called The Building a Story Brand. How do you build a story around these concepts so that you can convey them to folks and they can get behind that? So I think that that's what we've done. And as you talked about earlier, we know each other very well. I'm really one around growth. Growth is another one of our core principles. So we're looking at how do we refine this? How do we make this better? And how do we make our process and our interactions with our clients better and better all the time?
Yeah, that's really cool. And I think, one of the things that I've noticed about you and your team is that in addition to adding value through financial planning, at least through the traditional channels, right, with like helping with retirement planning, education funding, insurance planning, is I feel like one of the things that stands out is that you guys really focus on having a top-notch client experience. And when I think about your team and I think about marketing, I don't think about the typical, hey, let's post a clip about Social Security, or let's do something that's more on the traditional front. I kind of think that you guys, at least from what I'm seeing and many others that I talk to, is that you guys are really going deeper and you're finding really, really creative ways to gift to clients and find ways to just really connect with clients on a different level. So my question to you is, how did you shift from going 1,000 miles per hour, just focusing on the tactical side, if you will, right, of financial planning, to really kind of shifting gears to really putting your thought and focus on the client experience and the branding? How did you make that paradigm shift?
Yeah, so that's actually a really good question. I was talking to a couple of people about that today. I think there's a number of ways I could chalk it up. I could say maybe it was a midlife crisis. Maybe it was, I think it's really was frustration, quite honestly, of where I was. In the corporate entity that my firm is attached to, they have parameters of success, as most companies do. And we had reached that pinnacle 3 times in 4 years, and that meant a lot to us. But every time, to some degree, I didn't really know how I got there, to be honest. And so there's a lot of hard work and a lot of grit and some luck and all that stuff. But I realized that every time I hit it, I wasn't any more fulfilled or satisfied as a professional
Mm.
than the time before. And so I was looking at my career. I feel like my career's, maybe about half over. And so, you and I golf and are going to do that soon. So I look at this as sort of the back nine of my career. And I thought, you know what, I've done this the way I've been asked to do it. And I think I've done it relatively well, but it's never really felt who I was inside of my body, right?
Mm.
Inside of my skin. And so I said, so it was really a culmination of a few things. It was that thought. It was, how else do I want to build this mousetrap? And then more importantly, what do I want this back nine of my career to look like?
Mm.
And I got to a point where I did it others' way. Let me now, because as you mentioned, I don't have to necessarily do what I do to feed my family or to do anything else. And I think need to prove anything to anybody else. So it's like, how do I build this mousetrap maybe the way Eric thinks it should be built? And there's things going on in the industry and legislatively that I think it was this perfect storm. And I thought, you know what, I think the industry is changing, communication is changing. I will say, and I don't mean this derogatorily, but I think I was lucky that I started my practice when I did, because I really think we're at a forefront of change. People working remotely, people not being in offices, people not having social interactions the way they did before. So we sort of got lucky that we created this entity when we did. And I made these changes when I did, because I really think we're on the sort of the cutting edge of it all. And so that excites me. I wanted to really enjoy what I do. And not that I didn't enjoy the tactical and I didn't enjoy the business that I've built, and I've been extremely, extremely blessed. But I wanted to do it in a way that I loved doing it. So you talked about gifting. Gifting is actually there's a book called I think it's the
Five Love Languages.
5 Love Languages.
Yeah. My wife made me read that the first week we dated.
That's awesome, yeah. So you know the book. So
yeah.
So one of my love languages, and my 40th is coming up, Jimmy, so expect a gift. But one of my love languages is gifts. I enjoy receiving gifts. They don't have to be extravagant or anything fancy. It's just the thoughtfulness of it. And then the other is, and I've actually never talked to anybody about this, but the second is acts of service. I appreciate when people do things for me, either when they volunteer or I ask them and they gladly do it. And that is really what our firm has come down to, is these things, and just me after 40 years of living in the skin of what makes me tick. And if this is what makes me tick, and this is what gives me energy and gives me excitement and gets me fired up to hop out of bed at 4:15 every day, I want to do it that way. And so I have a gift in my car that my marketing person gave me that we're giving to somebody that's connected us with 5 amazing individuals over the last couple of weeks, right? So we're going to surprise them with something that's very basic, but personal to them. And there's no doubt that every time they see it or walk by it, they're going to think of us, and more than likely they're going to think of other great people that they should connect with our firm. So that's really where that kind of materialized from.
Yeah, it's really cool. One of the things I remember from that book is that it's one thing to fulfill your quote unquote love language, through those different channels, but you have a different level of fulfillment when you're actually doing those different acts. So it sounds to me like by you and your team gifting and serving others, it's really bringing that energy to you and to your team.
Yeah, exactly. And then, talking about this concept, it's then they see the energy that I have, and then they see the authentic nature behind it. And so I think it fires them up. I had a client that turned 40 in December, and we gave him a custom cutting board for Father's Day. And then we gave him a knife. I should get the name of it. Those Japanese knives they kind of use for sushi. They're very high end.
Oh yeah. Like Morimoto's knife set and stuff. Yeah.
So they look, that they've been like forged, with heat, and they've got these ripples and so forth. Yeah. And they had a nice wood maple handle, and we engraved his last name on it. And then it came in a wooden box, and it put his name, and it said 40th birthday. When I gave him this gift, Jimmy, you would have swore, as excited as he was, that I just gave him a Ferrari. I mean, he was like, no way, like this is insane. Like, he was just so over the moon. And I actually seen his reaction brought probably more joy to me than him receiving the gift.
Right.
And then, because we're in this social media age, he posted a picture of it, and he's like, I really appreciate this guy. I appreciate the relationship. He's become a friend. And then people respond to him. And then he connected us with a couple of people that saw that, and they're like, the person I'm working with, I don't have a relationship like this. They're not doing cool stuff like this for me. Like, what is this guy about? So
Right.
it just breeds this positivity, which, not to get political, but I think we need more of that in the world that we live in. And so that's really what we're trying to bring into our own little kind of microcosm, is abundance and appreciation, and showing that in these ways that show up, in people's daily lives that they're able to use.
Yeah, and that kind of leads me to my next question. You touched on it just a few minutes ago, where we really are at the crux, I feel, not just in our industry, but I think like in service-based businesses in general, where many of us are looking in the mirror and we're thinking about, okay, what are the next 10, 20, 30 years going to look like, for our businesses or our practices per se, like whatever, whatever industry you're in, if you're in a service-based business and you're looking to grow, we can't let our foot off the pedal.
Right.
So my question to you is, one, and maybe it's a two-part question. One, do you feel like maybe the old school way of just trying to like muscle your way to get referrals or names or introductions, do you feel like that's still going to be effective moving forward? And two, for those listening and tuning in, what's maybe like a first step or an intro per se that you think is a way for them to ease into maybe thinking differently if they were building their business strictly through word of mouth, right? Mm-hmm. So I guess that's what I was meaning to say, is whether it's muscling to the referral or just simply relying on word of mouth, do you feel like for service-based businesses in general, they can succeed like that moving forward? And if not, how can they think a little bit differently? Because, to get from a point of doing it that way for 10 years, like I know you did, and then shifting to this whole new way where you've got a whole different way of, getting these introductions, that doesn't happen overnight. So I know many listeners want to do something differently. Like they want to take that step, dip their toe into marketing or branding. So kind of a two-part question, if you will. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, the answer to the first part is that, do I think it's going to work and it's effective? The short answer is yes. I mean, we see that across our industry. We could look at other industries. It works. I would ask, are you fulfilled with a business that way? You feel satisfied? And what's important to you? Like, I'm very relational. You and I sustain this relationship because it's important to us, right? And so we, like any relationship in life, their significant others, friends, clients, whatever it may be, is you have to put in time and energy into it. And so if you just want to make money and relationships aren't important and it's more turn and burn and it's really about hitting numbers for numbers' sake, that works, right? That mousetrap obviously does work. The question is what does that look like at the end? And for me, it worked. I just didn't like the outcome. I didn't like how I felt. I didn't like how I was perceived. I just, like I said earlier, I didn't really feel like me in my skin. So the second part of the question is, one, you have to be self-aware to see what works for you and then start to figure out a game plan. So like last year, it was a hybrid of these things, these ideas, test what works. Obviously, we didn't know if COVID was going to come, so that caused some challenges for us. And then this year, it was like, we're all in. So a philosophy that I've always had in this practice and why I think I still stand here today is the philosophy I've taken is the only way to take the island is to burn the boats, right? Famous quote, meaning that when you get to an island, if you have a plan B to get off the island and you have the boats, you're going to always think about that in your head. But if you get on the island and say, I got to make this work, and you burn the boats, you don't have any other options. So that's how we've taken this, is that this is our only option now, and we're going to make this work one way or the other. And when you have that belief system, that mindset, that works as well. So it's a transition to some degree, plan for what you can plan for, and then you just have to be 100% bought in and go for it.
I love that, brother. It's a great way to put it. So one of the things, you and I were just on a virtual meeting yesterday, and the author, James Clear, very famous author of the New York Times best-selling book, Atomic Habits. Yeah. He was talking about how when you have really good habits, time is on your side, because it's those little things over time that really add up. But when you have bad habits, time is your enemy, because then you're compounding in the wrong direction. So I'd like to know, in your world, what does success mean to you, and how are you measuring that? Is it on a daily basis? Is it on a weekly basis? How does EG know? How does EG know that he had a successful day?
That's a good question. The short answer is I really don't, in all transparency. We have a lot going on. There's a lot of change. There's a lot of things in the practice that we're working on. And I think because of that, I guess you'd say to some degree, we're taking our eye off the productivity ball, but we believe that we're doing the right things. And so I know there are growing pains that I just have to deal with and be patient around, which is a challenge for me at times. But I look at I would say the easiest way I measure that is by the response we're getting from other people. I just got off of a call with a client. His mother is 78 years old. So he's, we've engaged in planning. We haven't done any implementation, but we've started to build his financial plan out. And he reached out to me out of the blue. And his mom has almost 900 grand, and they said, "We need some help. We want to talk to you. We want your input." And that tells me that's the signal that we're doing something right. And I look at other interactions we have, just feedback in all regards, and it tells us that we're going the right direction, right? So we're still, like in sports, you can do all the great things in practice, but you have to score points and win games. So we understand that we still have to get there, but we know that we have all the fundamentals down, and the mechanics of what we're trying to do is sound. So the other part of my day that I'll be honest, I've strayed from a little bit this month, but we've started the miracle morning. So I have a routine in the morning. So it's getting to that routine is how I gauge success. It's my effectiveness in meetings throughout the day is how we gauge success. But we don't have a matrix that says we've done this today. And I think because we've drifted from that, right? We don't have these certain numbers that we have to do anymore. It's
right.
Did I execute on these meetings? Did I get what I needed done? Did I follow up with the people I needed to follow up with? And did I do the things that my day required of me?
Right.
So I think we look at it a little bit differently today.
No, it makes sense. And, I think at the end of the day, like, you're trying to build this plane while it's in the air. So I asked you this question maybe a week from now, your answer is different.
Yeah.
So here we are at the end. As we wrap up here, Eric, we're excited for your golden nugget, man. So the golden nugget, is that piece or maybe a couple tidbits, if you will, that you want to leave for the audience. So I'll just ask you right now, to the audience listening today, what would your golden nugget be to this group?
I would say that it's the power of reading and the power of new knowledge or new information. I've been one for a long time that love the thought of reading, but I have pretty bad ADD, and I also come from a long line of nappers. So if I actually crack a book, I'll probably have it open 5 minutes at best before I'm on my phone or I'm pulled away. So what I've done is I've used that sort of weakness, if you would, into a strength. And so I'll do yard work, or I'll be sweeping the porch, or whatever it is, and I'll throw on my AirPods and I'll put on Audible. Last year I think I read 14 books. 2 of them were I think 600 or 800 pages. So in Audible years, that's 28 to 30 hours. And I got this obsession where I would put it in and I would just listen to it. I listen to it when I drive. If I happen to be going in the office, that's a 10-minute drive, I put it in. So it's 20 minutes worth of listening time. And if you do that and you do it consistently, you'll read 15 or so books at least a year. So I think that's great. And a lot of the ideas and what we're doing now is not anything that I've created. It's because of the books that we've read and the influence that we've gotten from them. If you don't feel like you can read, or there's other things, right now, I'd say another golden nugget is John C. Maxwell, phenomenal author, and I think was a pastor but his books are around leadership. Just came out with another book, and I have really been loving his stuff that he's been putting out. So I'll go on Instagram, I think TV it's called, and I'll listen to a 5-minute clip. Or if I'm not into my book and I just want a little quick snippet of something, I'll go on and find a podcast that he did. And I love his tone, I love his pace, but I love his passion. Making people better in leadership, and really everything that we do comes down to leadership, how we lead ourselves, how we lead our families, our business, how we lead our clients. He's just got a great way about him, and it's very applicable across all industries. And so that I would say is a golden nugget squared, right? Another one. Because that's how I'm not reading, but I'm taking in these things that's making me better. I rarely listen to music. I rarely do, stuff like that. I'm like you said about James Clear, I'm trying to always make myself just a little bit better, and I'm finding ways in my busy day to be able to get snippets of that.
Awesome. Well, thanks, brother. I really enjoyed today, man. And for everyone out there listening, if you are a business owner or an entrepreneur and you want to join the conversation, join the community, shoot us a message, leave a comment. We'd love to have you on. I'd love to connect with you. So thanks, EG. See you on the course in a bit.
Yep.
And stay tuned, y'all.
Thanks for having me.
See you.